instead of right on the dot at 2:40. So I'm going to give everybody just a moment to come back, take an extra second to stretch, and we will get started in just a second here. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with our jigsaw activity. I'm so excited because this is your opportunity to try out what you've watched our amazing facilitators do for you and get a little bit more experience and practice doing it. So in just a moment, we will be sending you into breakout groups. Very similar to the groups that we did earlier. I know some of the groups, sometimes people tend to be quieter because you're taking it all in. But again, this is your opportunity to learn, and you learn by doing. So, or a lot of people learn by doing. And it's okay. We all are learning together. Nobody's going to get it perfect the first time. This is a safe place for us to practice and learn. So I do want to encourage you to participate as much as possible in our groups. So what are we going to be doing in our rooms? In just a moment, we will be sending you out to the breakout rooms, as I said. Yesterday morning, we had asked you to identify if you were more interested in learning about math, you're more interested in ELA, and we used those preferences to divide you up. For those people who did not respond or didn't sign up either way, or who weren't able to attend, you were assigned randomly to a breakout room. Once you are there, you will hear a little bit of you'll hear from your facilitator about the different criterion for the dimension that you will be focusing on. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of vocabulary. The dimension are the different, I guess, the big bucket pieces that Ariana mentioned earlier. The criterion are the sort of sub-questions or the components, pieces of these dimensions that help us determine whether or not this dimension of our curriculum is there. And you're going to review the curriculum provided in your room under the handouts. You will see the curriculum that you'll be using. I think for the most part, it's just a piece of a curriculum, of a textbook. It's not the whole textbook. We don't have enough time to have you dig through all 400 plus pages of a textbook to look for the evidence. So instead, we gave you just a small portion of it to look through. You're going to answer the questions. And to answer the questions, and the questions are going to be located in a Google Doc. So each of our rooms are going to have a Google Doc that you'll be typing into, that I can, and it's personalized for your topic. I can share my screen just so that you can kind of see what it is that it will look like. Oh no, I think I might have just sent all of us out there. So this is good practice. I'm going to ask you at the bottom of your screen to click on the Adobe Connect symbol. It is in your icon. It's one of the icons on the bottom of your screen to take you back into Adobe Connect. Please let me know if you're not able to get back there. And just like that, you see how easy it is to be kicked out or to have technical issues that might cause problems for you. So hopefully you were all able to make it back into our Adobe Connect room a little bit more easily than I was. If you accidentally close it like I did, no worries. You can always just come back into the room and continue on the conversation that you were having previously. Let's see if there's anything else. I think with that, let's go ahead, Vicki, and send everybody out into our breakout rooms.
Okay.
Here we go.
So that went very fast, and we had some technical difficulties, so our group didn't get very far, but that's okay.
Sorry, I was muted. No worries, Nancy. That's fine. And that's actually something I wanted to start off this piece of our share out with, was that you know, it's okay that you maybe didn't get so far, that maybe you're just starting to get. You know, it sounded like a lot of groups, almost every group was in the middle of a conversation as we came back together. But that hopefully means that you're excited about this. Hopefully it means that you're ready to dig in more and ready to go back to your programs and start looking at this a little bit more and seeing, you know, what's going on with the curriculum that you are using. And maybe as we were just talking in the breakout room that I was in just now, you know, trying to figure out how much is the curriculum itself, how much is you as an incredible teacher supplementing it, because you instinctively know that your students need a little bit more than the curriculum has available, that you've just been adding to help your students so that they are meeting the standards. And what can we do so that we're okay. What can we do so that we are helping our students, perhaps with a curriculum that is better suited for them? Okay. With that, I did want to share my screen so that we could take a look a little bit at what all of our different groups are doing. Let's see. So here I have the work that I think this was Jen's group, that you were doing on building on ELA Dimension 2, building academic language. Jen, can you really briefly, I know you maybe didn't get as far as you would have liked, share with us some of the discussions you were having?
Hi. Sorry.
Hi. No.
So it was actually very difficult for us because we actually didn't have the right curriculum.
Oh no.
To go through these. But I hope it was okay for the group. I hope they took away some stuff. But in the very beginning, we did talk about a lot about choosing Tier 2 academic vocabulary. And I know that some of the comments that were made about like how some of the most common words that many students struggle with are words like effect and affect. There's that, and we talked about how to utilize the tool Achieve the Core to holding your curriculum accountable for including academic words, but also to ensure that you are providing challenging words so that way students are prepared for their exams. So we talked a lot about that. I think like maybe some of the other participants in the group might want to talk about maybe if there's anything that they took away from it, but yeah.
Yeah, we have a section to talk about the takeaways that we had that we can discuss in just a moment. I really do want to apologize and thank the people in your group for being patient that you had the wrong curriculum. I'm sure that was really frustrating and challenging, and we'll make sure that you get the right curriculum if you'd like to practice so that you can see what this could look like on the pages that you're supposed to be looking at. Let's hear from our other ELA team. Christina and Michelle's group. How did your discussions go? Was there anything that really stood out for you?
And they found a lot of substantiation, a lot of evidence, actually a lot more than I think Michelle and I found while we were doing the project.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, I see it all written here. Uh-huh.
Yeah, they did a really awesome job. One thing that I know was a really common theme in our group was that being that the standout curriculum isn't a text-based curriculum, it was hard to find that substantiation for it. But our group seemed to find really good examples of using evidence, having evidence-based discussions. I don't know if, Michelle, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think everybody, as Christina said, just did a great job. We're really impressed with what they found. And it was great actually seeing it through their eyes, because we got so caught up early on with this isn't a text-based curriculum. So I love all of the examples that they found.
That's great. And I think that also sort of speaks maybe to the idea that it's worthwhile to visit and revisit the curriculum, if it's one that you're already using, because you might find different substantiation or different ways of looking at it as you review it again and again. Great. Well, I'm so glad to hear that you had such fruitful conversations. Let's see. Next up, we have Curtis's group. I had an opportunity to pop in there for just the end. We have it's really interesting to hear everyone's perspectives, but I wasn't in there the whole time. So Curtis, can you tell us a little bit about the discussions or how things went in your group?
Yes. So the group, when they were just taking it all in, I wanted to ensure that I was speaking their language, and that is what we really need to make sure that we do with the students as well, is to make sure that we are speaking the same language that the students are speaking when it comes down to the math portion of this. Of course, we would always have the EL supports, but it's about finding those substantiations inside of the book. So I was briefly going over this, demonstrating where the students, where the group participants can actually find the substantiations. So with the first one, if it says we were going through alignment, and that's one of the portions where most teachers would have the questions when they open up a textbook. Where do I find these alignments? Inside of illustrative mathematics, this one provided us with the alignments for the standard. However, when it comes down to Common Core basics, for the text that we analyzed as a SIE group, it did not provide that. The individual instruction that I use inside of the classroom provided somewhat of this, but you really have to be familiar with the CCR and NRS levels to be able to take the curriculum analysis a step further. And that's where I was speaking with, I believe it's Glenn and Troy, because they are math teachers. So they have a better understanding. But the other participants in the group, I believe it was Linda as well, they were just taking it all in. And starting this process, it can be a bit overwhelming, but you do get through this process. It is very fun. It is very, very, very rewarding in the end to see those numbers move in the right direction, because you have a starting place when you start evaluating this curriculum.
Yeah, and I appreciate you modeling the idea of having to make sure that you're using a language that your students are getting. So thank you for that, Curtis. Last but certainly not least, we have John's group. John, can you share with us a little bit about how things went? Any interesting things that came up in your group?
It's just pretty straightforward. We were just looking for the substantiation, and I stressed that we have to cite the page and cite the example where we find the substantiation. And we had a couple of people just taking it in, and but yeah. So once you find the substantiation, go ahead and put it in there. And if you're not sure, then go ahead and find what you've got, and you can discuss it with the group and determine amongst your team whether or not it is sufficient.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Great. Wonderful. Yeah, I popped into all the different rooms throughout our time, and it was, I think there was, as both Curtis and John said, a lot of taking it in, and I know it can be a little bit harder if you're not used to teaching math and you're maybe not as familiar with the shifts or how those might play out. It can be a little bit more challenging. So I do want to appreciate everyone's willingness to take it all in and to learn maybe a new process. I had asked the group in Curtis's room if this is something that they'd ever done before, and I don't think a single person had. So, you know, a different way of looking at things. So with that, I want us to take an opportunity to reflect quietly for a moment and then type into the chat and think about this analysis process, especially for those of you who said that you're taking it in, and that's, I think, really important. But was it easy for you? What in particular, maybe there were some things that were a little bit easier. What was challenging in particular? And I guess overall, reflecting about the whole process, what was your takeaway? So I want to be quiet. Take a moment, and I'll allow you to collect your thoughts on that. As you're doing that, I do want to comment how excited I am to see multiple people are typing into what was easy. So, sorry, just to Okay, take just a couple more minutes, and I'd love if everyone can end up responding to at least 2 of these questions. It can be both what was challenging and what was your takeaway if you didn't find anything easy, or maybe you found something easy and something challenging and want to respond to those. Okay, I see a couple more people finishing up typing, so thank you for that. And as you're doing that, I do want to let you know that we solved the mystery of the curriculum. We had the ELA Dimension 2 was using Standout Level 4, and ELA that was looking at Dimension 4 was using Standout 2. So my apologies. I think I had labeled them the opposite of what they should have been. So for those of you who were not able to properly go through this process because you didn't have access to the correct curriculum, if you go into handouts, I would recommend for the ELA groups downloading both. So you can go through this process for both dimensions using different pieces of curriculum for different levels. All right, so let's take a look at what all of you shared. Again, I'm really excited to see that you did find some things that were easy. So review of the shifts, and that's great because it's the things that you were already doing in your classroom. The concepts are straightforward. Cynthia participated in past SIA. Oh, great, I'm glad. If you're already familiar with these, then that makes things a little bit better or easier. If you're familiar with the process, change the way you view things. Wonderful, good reinforcement. The class, good. Yeah, and that's a great reminder, Linda, that if you haven't already to take the or taken the Introduction to Standards class, please do try to do that because it's a great refresher, even if you are already familiar with the standards. The standards, not easy at first, but you understood the semantics of the process. Wonderful, Thomas. Easy to understand some pieces if you're familiar. Okay, great. Wonderful. So it sounds like a lot of you are seeing connections to things that you're already doing or already had been doing or already had been familiar with, and that always does help make things a little bit easier. All right, so as far as the challenges, Claudia, I think what you said about working on a laptop and switching between the 2 documents, that was something that we had discussed how to do this in an online format. When we did this, we lucked out and had a hard copy of our curriculum, and that made it so much easier to just be able to type right in. So hopefully when you're back at your program, you'll be able to go back and forth. And it does take some time, as Raquel says, but as you become more fluent and have increased fluency in doing this process, I think you'll find it a little bit easier to sort of keep that dimension in mind, as Kathy points out, trying to always remember what was it that I was supposed to be answering. And I think all the different questions that we had, break it down for you, give you like a little bite of what to manage at one time. So yeah, it does take a long time to evaluate a lesson. incorporating the dimensions into our working understanding of standards. I apologize again, Rain, about the issue with the documents. Let's see. Right. If you're not familiar with math, I imagine it was very challenging, Elise. So I appreciate your willingness to try to learn and go along with it. I think really the point was that we want you to become familiar with the process so that it does become maybe something less time consuming. Maybe it'll help you shift your view of it. It'll be faster as you become more proficient. And just, again, as you become more familiar with the process, which is really what we hope is the big takeaway, you'll get it a little bit more, and it won't be quite as challenging. All right, so takeaways. This is really, I think, the key. Let's see. It allows me to appreciate the tools, resources, and curriculum our program uses. It helps me feel best prepared to meet the needs of our students. Wonderful. Pedagogy. Okay. Yeah, I think that I had never really thought about the words that we use in math. So I really appreciate John and Curtis really bringing those to in our discussions. They really brought those up again and again and helped me think about that in a different way. Think about how we communicate about math. It's so key. Linda, your point about there's a lot to consider when deciding on textbooks for use in our class. I think that that's a key takeaway. Often it's really easy to just say, oh, well, this publisher is offering this book and it's cheap, let's go with that. But I think hopefully this exercise has driven home the point that we need to be critical of of the curriculum that we have access to and make our decisions based on what is really there as opposed to what our publishers are telling us is there. Give helpful resources and guidelines to move forward. Great, Ben, I'm glad to hear that. Better perspective on the text you use. Good critical thinking piece. Good, I'm glad, Patrick, that you saw some connections there. And Achieving the Core Academic Word Finder is a really great resource. Researching text, not taking the publisher's word. Wonderful. Dave, that was actually one of the key things when our group came together first to plan this training. That was the thing that really stood out for all of us. That was a key takeaway. So I'm glad to hear that you saw that as well. You need to look at the objectives of each lesson, evaluate the content of the curriculum to make sure that you're reaching those objectives. Good. I'm glad, Pablo, that you're seeing a different view of things. So that's great. Teachers need a lot of support and training. Yep. I think, Claudia, that we're going to be helping you with that over the next year, helping your teachers become more familiar and learn to do this process as well. You feel you enjoyed the course. I'm glad to hear that, Patrick. Okay, great. Feel better equipped. All right, so good. I'm really glad to read all these. It sounds like there are some good takeaways, that there have been some positives that have come out of this, and that hopefully, what may at first have seemed like perhaps a scary idea, having to analyze your curriculum. How do you start doing that? Hopefully it's become a little bit less scary, but I just want to confirm that. So, yesterday we started off our day by asking you, what color are you feeling about implementing the standards? And so we did actually, surprisingly, maybe it was because it was Monday morning and everybody was feeling bright and optimistic. I'm curious what color you're feeling now about the standards. Or about implementing standards and analyzing your curriculum to make sure that it aligns with the standards. And so for those of you who did not or weren't with us yesterday, I know that the words can be a little bit small, but so red has words in there like panicked, stressed, jittery, frustrated, angry, worried, Blue has things like glum, morose, pessimistic, alienated, miserable, lonely, tired, bored. Yellow has things like upbeat, festive, cheerful, motivated, inspired, enthusiastic. And green has things like content, secure, grateful, touched, relaxed, peaceful, serene. So I'm curious to hear how all of you are feeling now after our 2 days together, talking about standards and aligning our curriculum to the standards. I don't see. Okay, so it looks like no more. We have a couple more takers. We have 34 participants and only 25 votes. 26. Okay, great. All right. So I have to say I am pretty happy. It looks like we definitely have shifted everyone into the yellow and green. If you're not quite there yet, that's okay. If you are still feeling red or blue and just don't want to share that because you don't want to be the only one, that's okay. It's okay to feel like that. As I said earlier in the day, it's a lot and it's new. And so that can always be stressful. It can be a little bit scary. It can make you feel lonely, exhausted just thinking about trying to do these things. So I do want to acknowledge that red and blue are completely valid feelings to feel despite having 2 days of training, or maybe because of having had 2 days of training. But I'm really excited to see so many of you feeling upbeat and excited and hopefully inspired and motivated to move forward with implementing and aligning with these standards. Okay, so to wrap this up, I have one last reflection question for us. It's great that we sat together for these 2 days, that we worked through all these things. I know it was a lot. But I'm going to ask you if you could share what is one next step you will take. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to take this back. I'm going to go back and analyze my whole curriculum tomorrow. That's not realistic. What is one thing, no matter how small, that you're going to do to start moving in the right direction? And Barbara, I understand that it was overwhelming. It is a lot of information. As we've shared a couple of times already, this was information that we got over the span of 5 or 6 months. And again, we try to compress it into 6 hours. So feeling overwhelmed, a very, very legitimate thing to be feeling. But I'm very glad to hear that you feel motivated. So Debbie shared she's going to review the text she uses. Curtis is going to share their knowledge with others. Wonderful. Adrian's going to share this information with instructors and begin the process of evaluating curriculum. Wonderful, Adrian. If you need any support with that, I'm here to help. Christina's going to regroup their team to see thoughts, share experiences, and brainstorm how they can collaborate to bring this process to the program. Let's see, review and talk to our team about what they learned. Wonderful. Sure you're incorporating the shifts and dimensions. More aware of taking a closer look at things that I use for my classes. Great. Engage in dialogue with instructors, continue to engage instructors in PD. Wonderful. And if you would like your instructors to participate in the introduction course, we can definitely make sure that they have access. Sorry, the Introduction to Standards course. We can definitely make sure that they have access to that, so they have the background knowledge that they need to fully participate in this. All right. Great. So with that,
Marcella?
yes, Nancy.
Yeah, we've got a couple things that I'd like to point out if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Are they related to next steps?
They are. I'm sorry, did I jump again?
That's totally fine. No, that's okay. I know we're coming up against the end of our time, so that's great. Let's move to next steps. I will stay in the room and be willing, or have the general chat available to anybody who has final questions, which was our next piece. So let's make sure we do get the next steps in though, and anybody that would like to stay after class is more than welcome to just stay and ask. So yes, Nancy, please go ahead.
Okay, great. So with this training, we wanted to really focus on the instructional leadership within the program, and certainly full-time instructors. We have a lot of part-time instructors out there that will also need this training. So the next phase will include the development of an online course related to this training and additional training like we did the last 2 days that you'll be able to include part-time instructors, any full-time instructors that were not able to attend, and any new staff that you believe need to go through the training. So there is more to come. AIR just released the College and Career Readiness Standards and ELP standards for the online component. So this year they'll be working on an online course for the Standards in Action 2.0 training. So lots more to come. And I wanted to mention a couple of reasons why I felt like this was really important training to have and important training to continue. And that is that as you've heard from our wonderful teachers that have presented over the last 2 days, we all found that the curriculum we were reviewing was lacking in many ways, and in some cases was maybe more appropriate for being the supplemental curriculum than being the primary curriculum. So that was one of the big takeaways, that the vendors saying this is aligned, not enough. And that is also what we saw repeatedly in the applications that were submitted for the request for proposals this year. So the questions that we included in the request for proposal had to do with how are you addressing the College and Career Readiness standards within your curriculum? How are you making sure that your curriculum is aligned? The responses that we got seemed to focus more on the language that the vendor uses. The vendor, testimony that their curriculum that you're buying is aligned. So it was definitely a factor in delivering this training to make sure that when the question of how are you addressing College and Career Readiness standards in your instruction is more than just, oh yeah, our curriculum's aligned, or our vendor says the curriculum's aligned. We want to make sure that it's more than that it goes deeper. The other thing is, if a program is planning to change curriculum, before a purchase is approved, we will require that your program go through this process to evaluate the curriculum that they're planning to change to or looking to change to. So additional policy will be coming out for that. Just giving you a heads up. So, and I don't want to end on a negative note in any way. I don't think it is negative. I think it is so extremely valuable that it is a necessity. So, and I've gone 3 minutes over. So I will turn it back to Marcella. Thank you.
No problem, Nancy. I want to note that on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you will find an evaluation. We are always looking for ways to better support you, provide more training, make sure that our trainings are what you need, and that we're doing them the right way and meeting your needs. But I think, Nancy, though, to your point, that everyone in this training seems to have recognized the value of going through this process, despite it being overwhelming, despite it being time-consuming. So I think that what you said makes a lot of sense. With that, I want to say thank you. Again, please complete the evaluation, but I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes if anybody has any final questions. If you do have questions that come up, I'm happy to, hold on. Apparently I can't talk and type at the same time. I put my email address in the chat box for you. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and I am happy to support you in any way that I can. So with that, again, please complete the evaluation and let me know what questions, if any, that you have. Oh, you're very welcome, Barbara. And oh my goodness, I can't believe I almost did this. I do want to, again, thank Anna, Christina, Jen, John, Curtis, Michelle. I think I got all of you. I was trying to do it alphabetically. I'm not sure that I did. And Ariana, for your wonderful presentations today. This training would not have been what it was without you. And I really want to thank all of you for sharing your incredible perspectives and everything that you've learned. And I feel so grateful to get to work with all of you. Great. Thanks so much, Anna. I really appreciate everything the six of you, and seven, sorry, Ariana, the seven of you have done to really make this work. And with that, since I see Christina, yes, okay. Since there are no more questions, I'm going to ask Vicki, let's go ahead and close out the room. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to email me.